Hello and welcome to Muse and Metrics. This is your host, Philippa Burgess. I'm here with another one of our Women Techmaker guests, and I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Stefania Pecore. I'm from Montreal. And today is a beautiful day, which is great. Usually we have a lot of raining. And I work, I'm an AI person, first of all. I really love AI. And I work as an AI director and also as an AI consultant for several industries. We'll probably have some time also to talk about this. And one thing that I really, really love is especially to try to understand more and more about AI. And one thing that I usually do is also mentoring people. So I'm an ambassador for Google Women Techmakers, Women in AI and Women in Games. And recently I've been appointed as an AI expert for Women for Ethical AI by UNESCO. So yeah, it's a very long journey, I will say, but it's everything about AI technology and especially how to support humans with technology.
And I'll say your journey is, you've been at this for quite a while. You have a PhD in AI. And you definitely were studying this before it got into mainstream consciousness, because now we're all AI all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And all of us are at different stages of our understanding of AI, how to use it from the customer side point of view, of how to use it for the developer point of view, and then a lot of the ethics that go into it, the building of the models, and how that all works. So it's a wide conversation. I love the fact that you have experience as a mentor, and congratulations on all the acknowledgements and that you're getting, because it's well deserved. So we have quite a bit to talk about, but let's just start us with your role as a Women Techmakers Ambassador, how long you've been involved, and just that's obviously how we met and how it's been a transformational experience for me. And so let's just start us there.
Yeah. So I remember everything started because one of my closest friends here in Montreal at some point wrote a post on LinkedIn with, "Hey, I'm now a Women Techmakers Ambassador." I was like, what is this? So I was searching about it. At some point I was like, wow, this is so cool. And I remember that I tried to enter the program, and I think it was one of the first cohort in North America. So it's almost 2.5 years ago. And since the day, I would say there has been a lot of stuff that changed. First of all, I met a lot of different people, different women in different roles who are sharing the same passion as me. So technology, and especially different type of technology. So it's really interesting because it's not only AI, but I can also learn about other stuff, which is extremely important for me and also very, very interesting. And at the same time, the program itself helped me a lot, not only with the networking part, but also in having more resources on how to be a good mentor. And I have also resources on what to say and how to say in a way that people can understand, even people that have no experience in technology, in AI. I was able to participate in many events where technology is basically the main masterpiece. And so I would say it's something that has created a revolution in my life. At the same time, allowed me to meet a lot of new mentees. And as I said before, we can learn when basically we meet other people and they ask us questions that we never think about them before. So it's a really great experience.
And I love your role as both mentor, and then of course we're all mentees. We all lean into people who pour into us and help us and grow, especially as we grow into leaders and people who are more visible in the community. And I'm running a mentorship program, and I would love just to get some insights that you have in terms of mentorship. And I know that WTM is also going forward with wanting to do more mentorship opportunities between the ambassadors and the members of the community. And for anybody, you can become a member by going to womentechmakers.com and just sharing your email, and then you're on the list. And every month, I believe, you get a newsletter. It tells you different things that are going on, different opportunities, and it's all designed to empower women in tech. And I found that for me, being an ambassador was really important because I was transitioning from a master's of arts to a master's of science, and I wanted to own my identity as a woman in STEM and tech and science. And I was like, yes, this is a big transition for me, because I've always had these skills and interests kind of latent in me, but I felt very much was channeled early on into, hey, you're a woman, go into the arts, go into communications. And a lot of times in work, they'd say, oh, you're pretty, sit at the front desk. Oh, you're friendly, you can answer the phone, and you can get the coffee for the meeting. And I was always like, I was like, I am being massively underutilized in my skills. And I think going back and really sort of drilling down in science and technology, and getting way over my head on certain things. I'm doing a lot with cybersecurity now, and I'm doing hackathons, and I definitely hit dead ends of like, I do not know how to do this, or I apply for things and I get back, you need to be a little stronger in the IT side of this, or you need to be more stronger in this. And I don't take those as a no. I take those as a not yet, and information that I need to say, okay, I can get better, because my goal is to be technically proficient, have a really good foundation in tech. And yet at the same time realizing, and I think this comes back to some of your skills as well, that I do have this background in communication, probably a different type of communication than you do, because I said I was kind of channeled into the arts, entertainment, and media. And when I stepped into the science, I kind of tried to put that away. And then when being invited to Women Developers Academy, I'm like, oh, great, I'll learn how to code better. And they're like, no, this is a public speaking course.
Yes.
And so you have a background in communication as well. So you also understand the importance of blending technology and communication and making that inclusive.
Yeah.
And that's where I found that this voice that I have and this comfort that I have in speaking and engaging in community building was actually having a place and was valued. And I realized that I didn't need to put away these skills that I had. I needed to merge them and combine them and put them together. And it didn't need to slow down my desire to grow as a technically proficient professional. Yet at the same time, there was something unique I could add to the community.
Yeah. I mean, I started everything with a bachelor in foreign languages. So it was very far away from what I'm doing right now. But for sure, I remember when I started my master in NLP, I was one of the first master about those topics. So they were not as much as defined as today. But one thing was sure, there were always two groups of people from humanities and people from, we can say, technology, mathematics, IT. And they were not communicating because basically they were not able to find a shared point, even if they were studied the same stuff. And it was clear at that point that it was interesting to see how to be the bridge between the two. And today it's more important because especially right now that we have a lot of AI everywhere and people are getting excited and they want to use it. If you are like, you need to be technical because however, especially when you are building stuff, you need to be technical for sure. But at the same time, if you want that this discipline can go far away, you need also to convey the message to people that are not technical. And especially it's important that they can understand what they're doing and what are the opportunities, what are the challenges, what are the risks, and you need to engage them. So absolutely, it's important to make sure that we can communicate and be technical at the same time. I think the two things are not excluding themselves. We will have more and more people that are able to communicate with a different audience, at the same time being very, very technical. For sure, it's something I would say more complex than before, because before it was mostly there are, we can say, I will not say normal job, but like classical job. And then you have the researcher with their technical expertise and so on. So they were really two different worlds. Today we are seeing that more and more we have people that have both competencies, and they are interested in growing in both. So I think we are in a great moment right now.
I love that. And I encourage and invite people onto my stage. And a lot of times people say, hey, it's my first podcast. It's my first time doing this. And I think it's important to me to have that opportunity for people to find that visibility and find that point of entry into this. And I love that. I think communication is so important. And yet I hear you say that seemed less applicable. And yet I look at you and it's like you said, you're from Italy, and yet you live in a bilingual city that speaks English and French. So I'm sure every skill that you learned is actually you use every day.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say, yeah. And it's really, I can say, I went for my master, I went to France. So I lived in France for 10 years. And when I came here, I really noticed the difference. Even if there are French speaking people, I really noticed how their French is different from the one from France, and how they think in a different way. And that's so interesting, because some things that maybe I could apply in France will not work in communication here. And that's why it's extremely interesting. It's also important to make sure that I can really be the not foreigner person here.
In communication, we were talking about language. I imagine there's all sorts of things that we can kind of get into related to how it works with AI and AI ethics and AI safety. I know, for example, that people who have, I'll call it an American accent, are able to be translated by my transcript tool, which is basically an AI tool. And any kind of variation, it does not really know how to handle that. It's not really trained well. And so we're not yet at a point of inclusivity related to simple tools like that.
It's true, and it's one of the things that are also discussed in UNESCO. The fact that inclusivity is something that we need to improve. There are also, when we create images, for image generation, we really see that the data we have is not inclusive for every type of person that we can meet in our daily life. And this is tricky, this is dangerous, especially because you can see, like, especially we might think about new generation. They will using this AI, and it's like a sort of bias that will feed other bias, and we are in a weird circle. And that's why we also need to pay attention on what to do. Especially, we need to make sure that we are aware of what we are doing, that we question what we have in terms of technology and AI. One thing that I usually say is, okay, it's great to use any chatbot. I will not say any name, but any chatbot out there is great. It might be fun. We need to pay attention to the fact that our entry is basically something that we have an impact on the environment. However, but at the same time, we are humans with a brain. We need to be supported by these tools, but we need also to question what I'm reading is really something existent, is something that I can trust. Why should I receive this reply instead of another one? So it's something that for me I'm a really curious person, so it's like interesting. I see here that something is not like complete 100%, but at the same time, it's also important to highlight that the systems we are using right now, they are not perfect for sure. At the same time, they are not human. I see a lot of chatbot assistants that are made as a person. Probably we should avoid this kind of stuff because it seems like we have a new friend, but at the same time, it's just a model with some data behind.
And I think that for example, I'll say it, ChatGPT a lot. I've experimented with Gemini. I know there's some other ones out there. I think the one I've been hearing a lot about is Perplexity.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure kind of where that one comes from. And I see that with those, I'm very comfortable chatting with them as if they have kind of these human qualities. The ones I don't like are when they pretend to be a person and they put a name and a face to it. And I think there's it's one of those psychological ones, like to make you feel better. And they're like, they say, oh, you can talk to this sort of AI therapist. Those are the ones that weird me out and I don't like them. And they feel very computer. It feels like I'm talking to a computer because they pretend that this is a person and it is so not. And that's whereas I'm better when I know I'm talking to the computer and the computer seems to have human-like qualities in the way that we are able to discuss things. And I will actually almost every day now, because I have it on my phone as well as my computer. But what I love about the paid version is I'm able to snip photos and upload files and say, this is what I'm working on. This is what I'm thinking about. Let me outline this. And I would not recommend this. And I think this is very important to sort of say, as a student, I use it a lot and I use it as a study tool. I do not ever use it in any attempt to cheat. And any professor who knows me knows I do the work. So it's never a shortcut. It's just helps me organize my thoughts, help me go through things, help me understand things. I do a lot of technical processes where I get lost. And some of our professors are very much like, I don't know that I can help you with that. See if ChatGPT can. I mean, not that they couldn't help us with it, but they're sort of saying, go there first. That would be a better use of everyone's time and resources. And I have actually looked at the things about how do you break AI as a AI reading AI. So they have things like turn it in. And so a lot of times I'll have done all my readings. I'm not doing this to cheat, but I do find that it helps me organize my thoughts. It just is a tool that I use as I write now. But I do know that my final result is going to be perfect. So I always add spaces at the end of my text so I don't get flagged by turn it in, because it was saying like, well, if you have some typos in your paper, it will be less likely to flag it. And so I don't want to, I consciously add typos. So I add spaces so that it reads those as typos. So that's the way I've hacked the hack. But again, from anybody who knows me academically, there's no shortcuts. I'm not taking shortcuts, but I do find it so effective for me as a study tool that it has just become part of what I do and how I do it. So I've had to kind of work within the rules, so don't break the rules.
I mean, it's also a way to learn what are the limits of the system. And maybe one thing at this point that I will ask you is if one day you will not have access anymore to these tools, what you will do? How would you live your life with those tools?
I think that they are a supplement. They're not the everything. I think they help me get to where I want to go faster. And I think it's the difference between certificates versus certifications. So I'm going through a lot of learning paths and I go through them very quickly. And I don't know that the learning paths would necessarily endorse that you use AI to answer their questions, but I like to just go through them in volume. And I have this way of doing it where I'll kind of watch the videos and I just, sort of block watch the videos, and then I'll read the text and I'll put that in Edge. And so I'll hit read it to me. So I have the text read to me. So that would be the thing I would miss most. If you took away read aloud, that I would fall apart, because the volume that I read and the ability to use read aloud, that's one of my academic tools. And then I go through and take all the labs. And then I go through and take all the quizzes. So I kind of just, and so when I'm just doing a block of quizzes, I just use those tools because it helps me move faster.
Yeah.
But the thing about a certificate is it is a learning path, and it's designed for my own knowledge and my own gain. When I take a certificate, those are proctored exams. So I've taken them in person, I've taken them online, where you're showing the four edges of your desk, you're showing, you're panning around your room, they want to know your whole environment. They can see your clicks, and they're very much moderating, you know, every move on the computer, because they're not for cheating, and I don't cheat. So again, if I take an exam and it is a open book exam, I feel totally fine using AI. If it is not an open book exam, I do not use AI. And most of the ones that I take that are not open book are proctored. So there's not even a chance that I don't want it to. And so I think that that's the point of, if you're using it to improve yourself and your knowledge and just go faster, and it's more helpful to you, then it's a good thing, because it's not replacing your work. And I think that that's the most important thing, is I'm not having it do my work for me. It doesn't write my paper for me. I always feel very comfortable as a writer. I mean, in many years of my career, but that was my job, was writer. And I did a lot of corporate communications and social media and digital marketing. But I always sort of, at the core of my skill set that I was selling was writing. And I think that it's really important that I know what a good paper looks like. So it doesn't write the paper for me, but it helps me review my readings. It helps me review my assignment. Hey, did I meet the minimum requirements of this several page assignment? Because these are very technical, and there's a lot of steps involved in just making sure I didn't miss anything. And I will then say, okay, let's go through it section by section. And I'm like, add this, change this, do this. I don't like this. Okay. And it's my words. It's just, it always feels better. But I also have to remind it not to do too much bullet points. Like, please put this in narrative. Please make this concise. So I have gotten very good at making it do the things I want to do. But also, if you were to go into my ChatGPT right now and say, tell me about myself, it will write my full bio. It will tell you all my projects. It will tell you all my problems. It will tell you all the things that are my goals. It because I journal with it. Yeah, I'm always like, and actually I found the most ridiculous house cleaning technique ever, which is I take a picture of my mess, I put it into my chatbot, and I was like, this is what I want to clean up. And it breaks it down into steps. And then I clean that little corner. I take another picture, and it's like, good job, keep going.
Okay. That's the first time that I'm hearing about this. It's really wow. I like it.
But it helps me like organize, because I'm always a pen and paper person. I take a lot of notes. I'm always journaling. I'm always writing lists. And so ChatGPT or any of these other chatbots just help me do it more and better. And I think what I was really surprised by, I was going to say, as someone who's not on the back end of creating it the way you are, but just as a front end user, was I thought that it was remembering a chat. So when I charted a chat, it would remember the things that we talked about earlier in the chat. I wasn't realizing that the entire ecosystem of every chat we've ever had is now part of its memory. And that's when it surprised me that I could start a whole new chat and say, tell me about myself. And it has a lot that it wants to say about me, because we've built a relationship now over the last 2 years. It knows a lot about me, and they're all true. I mean, they're all the things that I have brought into its knowledge and its memory.
Yeah. And I would say, that's the part that is, it's interesting. I really like the fact that for sure you are using it in a way, like you are not going into a state of like you have the control, so you know what are you doing, and especially why you are doing it, which is something that I always encourage to do. Probably one thing that sometimes I heard, like there are people that will say the fact that, for example, ChatGPT can describe yourself is good, because they find it as something like some sort of customization when they discuss with those models. There are other people that are really scared about that, because of course they will wonder, okay, but am I still the owner of my data, of my discussion? What will happen if someday ChatGPT or other system will not be there anymore? What will happen to my data? Who will have my data? What happens if there is any sort of breach in the system? Am I telling something that I should not tell? And I was not, like, some people are also in this state where they are not anymore aware of their conversation. They're just going directly into the chat. Like, it reminds me of, now that I think of it, reminds me of myself when I was like writing my diary in Word. Yeah, so it's a fascinating word for sure, and I'm also like very intrigued by how people perceive all this technology in a different way. What are their fears? What are their frustration? What are their joy? And what they would like to see also in the future. Some people are already happy of the state of the art, we can say. Some people would like to see more and more automation, and I mean, a way to be probably to have more freedom, because there will be a little assistant AI that will do the boring stuff for them. So yeah, it's an interesting moment. So, yeah.
I think one of the things to reiterate to just the audience is the idea that AI will not replace you, but somebody who uses AI probably will.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's 100% sure. But I mean, it's always been this way. Like, people that were not able, or they were refused also to use Word at the beginning, will probably be replaced, or they will have some problem because they were not able to accept that they couldn't use anymore paper and pen to write down stuff. So yeah.
Well, I remember when I moved to Colorado, it felt like I was going back in time because I grew up in New York and then was living in LA. And between California and New York, you were getting the latest technology, and it was just part of the culture and part of the communications. And when I went to Colorado, it was 5 years later, and that from the beginning of, I would say, to Facebook, I'm thinking of 2007. And then I moved to Colorado in 2012. And by the time I was working there, it was like 2013, 2014. It was just when companies were starting to get the memo in the middle of the country, like, oh, we're supposed to do something with LinkedIn, or we're supposed to do something with Facebook. We don't know what it is, but it's finally kind of gotten to the point that it's here. And I think one thing that was very hard for people to distinguish, I want to say particularly women, and I felt a lot of them were sort of middle-aged, middle management, and worked very hard to get to where they were in their career. A lot of them didn't have a lot of formal education. They'd maybe gotten married younger and had kids, but then realized, I need a job. And they found their way into fields like property management. And now they were petrified of these new technology tools because they were so afraid. And they weren't wrong, because their thought was, if my boss were to see me on here, he's going to think I'm looking for another job, and then I will be fired. And the reality is that boss knew so little about it as well, that if they did see them on there, they probably would have come to that conclusion. Yeah. And so they were so afraid of this idea that they had gotten comfortable with sharing family photos on Facebook, but the idea to now have a professional persona and what that looked like was entirely new for them. Yep. And in this digital world of, wait, I have this personal persona and now I can have this professional one. What is this? How does this work? Was totally frightening to them. And then the fact that they were getting pressure from corporate to do something with their company Facebook page. Yeah. And that was even more frightening to them, because Facebook was the place they had their family photos. They're like, I don't want to mix this work personal thing that we're doing here, and I don't know how to do it. So I came in, and that's where I did a lot of my work for quite a few years, was helping these companies and these people make this adoption into the sort of this digital transformation that was happening, while at the same time helping them feel very secure in their jobs and in their positions and allowing them to do what they did best.
Yeah, I mean, it's if we think about it, we went from okay, we need to hide the fact that we are using LinkedIn, to your company probably asking you to use LinkedIn and their brand. So now we have the brand also. So it's and I don't know if it's only my perception, because like back in Europe, where I was, LinkedIn was not so used. So I started to use it very much here in Canada. But it was, for me, so fast how people changed the way to use LinkedIn. And I'm pretty sure that in 3-4 years, we will have other way to use also the AI tools and other technology that we are not even about right now.
Well, they were even saying now is a golden time for YouTube. And I don't do as much as I would like to do, because I still have a lot of learning to do with editing and other things. But they were saying this is the last kind of hurrah of real people being people on YouTube, because in the next 2, 3, 4 years, it's the whole ecosystem is going to be a lot more AI driven.
Yeah, that's true. I don't remember the source, but I know that they are trying to basically create a sort of maybe it was inside YouTube. I don't remember, but I basically they would like to create interactive video with AI, where you can learn from the video, you can ask questions, because you will have AI inside those videos, so you can ask questions about those videos while you're watching the video. I don't know how they will change everything to make sure that we can afford that, especially if I think about, like, for the text part, I can imagine how it might be done, but I will not be able for now to imagine something like sort of, we can say, pseudo-human trying to reply to those questions in live. I know that, like, I work a lot with Facebook for like personal stuff, and what I'm encountering more and more are profiles that are made by people, but they are AI profiles, and they try to gain money from those profiles. So they have a sort of bot system that will click like on some pages, or just reply in a human-like style under like very important profiles that everybody is following. And so it's I will say it's a different world, and it has been so fast. Like 5 years ago, it was not in this way. So it's a lot of learning. It's a lot of probably resilience, also to make sure that I know this for some people can be frustrating to see all these not real but real at the same time profiles, because you have people behind. So it's interesting. Yeah, we are going to philosophy here.
No, it's important, because I think also, for example, our news and our media have changed, and therefore it's also changed our politics. And obviously, as we are right now, America's in an election cycle, and we're seeing just the media over the last 10, 20 years, more than that, especially with social media, it just affirms whatever someone's worldview is. It doesn't challenge it. And I watch media from both sides, and I see it, and I know that I'm watching propaganda, that it's not fact-based. It's very polarized in one direction or another. And I always feel like I'd like to be a centrist, but at the same time, I'm seeing certain things happen that are kind of pulling me in a direction, because I buy into a certain narrative over another narrative. And so, for example, one of the narratives that's really getting on to me this week is this very sort of anti-woman narrative that we're hearing, and this anti-DEI, for example, with one of the senators saying, you know, hey, that's a DEI hire. And it's like, what does that mean? And I take personal offense to that, because I look at it as someone who already comes from privilege, but also knows that I was tracked to arts, entertainment, media, communications, because you're cute and pretty, you can go in that direction. And my father's an engineer who also studied economics and then became an accountant, and has done a lot of projects at the intersection of engineering, economics, and accounting. And so I had a very strong math base growing up, and I'm a quick study and I'm well educated. And yet at the same time, didn't matter what my education was, if people saw me, they would say, oh, you're the person who can get the coffee. And so I look at DEI as something that through Women Techmakers, through these initiatives, through Tech Equity Collective, you're giving people a seat at the table to learn and to grow and to lead. And so when I hear a comment from someone who is on the world stage, not just the United States stage, saying things like that's a DEI hire, it's like, well, and then defending it by saying things like, well, you just got to pick the best person for the job. Well, how did someone become the best person for the job? Because they were trained, because they had experience. And so it starts at the very beginning, that if you don't give people with diversity, whether that's women or color or LGBT or whatever the diversity element is, that you are not ever creating qualified candidates. And so that bias just continues. And so I do take personal offense when people say stuff like that, because it is not grounded to me in any kind of knowledge. And my first master's, when I started this whole sort of academic reset that I'm in, was in urban planning, where I really understood that when you have a nice neighborhood and you have a not nice neighborhood, that becomes by design. And that a lot of these initiatives are to say, you know, we've underinvested in the education and the resources for a lot of these communities for a long time, and maybe now it's time we do better. So there's a reason that they're there, and I appreciate it. And I would not be getting the opportunities that I'm getting without DEI initiatives. I am a recipient of DEI initiatives, and I will probably be a DEI hire if I go into government, because they'll say, oh, let's take a closer look at those women applications, and maybe let's give them an opportunity to pour into them, this brings us back to the mentor conversation, which is a great place, I think, for us to sort of take this next, is that if you don't invest in people, they can't grow into those qualified candidates that you're looking for.
Yeah, totally. And I remember I read a lot of research papers speaking about the fact that you can be what you want to be, but at the same time, if we have bias, the bias will not be only when you try to have a different job, but it will have an impact already before that. I remember reading all this paper about using AI in schools and trying to grade the students, and how they were really impacted by the gender. So if you were like a woman, basically, automatically was like trying to create a sort of more negativity in the final note for mathematical disciplines. And even if the results were almost the same, and if you were a man, you will always be able to have a better note. And I mean, especially for some age, this can have a big impact in your life and your decision, because maybe you will think that you are not able to keep going with all the statistics and mathematics. So, okay, and it's not true. So it's also, I think, organization and like missions such as the one from Women Techmakers is extremely important, because we can create a sort of way to think twice, like trying to invite people to think twice. Maybe it's not how you thought it was until now. I was mentoring one person. She was like, I would like to become a manager, but I always be the technical person. And well, it was a very complicated situation, but basically his manager was telling her, you cannot become a manager because you don't have the skills, and having those skills will require you to like practice them for many years. And I was like, okay, well, thank you for the opinion from your manager. We accept it, but now tell me more about your story. And I was like asking her questions about her personal project, or things that were like happy situation in her life, or basically things like how, when you need to start your technical project. So as a technical person, how would you start it? Like, what is your mental process? And at some point I was like, okay, you know what? All this stuff that you are mentioning me, you can reuse it in management. Probably you will have some skills to learn, of course, because you need to, usually when you do a project, you are alone and you need then to interact with other people more and more. But this is something that like everybody will go into that challenge. But you have everything. And I remember after 2 years, she became a manager. I was like, finally. Of course, in another company.
Yeah. And I think I think a lot of it is we don't go for the things that we can't see. And so to have those role models, to hear those voices, to hear other people have gone forward as well, and that those things are all possible. So I think that the role of mentorship is really important. A couple of questions about how do you deliver it. So had started this idea of doing this 6-month mentorship, and we're kind of halfway through it right now. I just onboarded a second cohort. I just came back from a conference and all I wanted to do was sleep for a week. So I'm kind of coming out of that, and now I'm like, okay, I'm back. But I have 50 mentees now. And the one thing I've been really struggling with is how to really coordinate one-on-one mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
Because I never want to put my mentors in a position where they're feeling like they're stuck, or they're having awkward conversations, or that it's not, it needs to feel to me that everybody shows up for the meeting. It's clear about what the technology platform is. It's clear what the scope of the conversation is, how long it is, if it's a one-time meeting, if it's a continuous meeting. Mm-hmm. And I know that I'm able to give a lot of resources to our community. So that part's going great. I'm involved and engaged in our community. I've sort of stepped in with what I'm calling sort of these small group meetings. And those have been going really well. And sometimes I'll have a mentor as a co-host with me. Other times and mentees are free to kind of schedule them. And then once I know it's a good time for at least one person, I can invite everybody else and we can, have a little meeting. And I'm trying to also get them to get to know each other. To me, that's important, because I think that building that sense of community and that camaraderie of peers. But I also know that they're looking for leaders. They're looking for people who are, several steps ahead of them. I know in cybersecurity, a lot of them are feeling like, I don't see the point of entry for me, because the industry just doesn't have a clear path for how people enter the industry. That it's got the certification. So if you're just starting out, it's like, oh, get this certification and get that certification. But it's like, okay, now what? Hackathons are quite good. That's another kind of way forward. But just trying to answer this for them. I'm interested in cybersecurity. I'm doing my own sort of university a certificate in cybersecurity through law school. So it's more on the regulations and the rules and that compliance part of it.
Yeah. So I will say, so in terms of mentorship, I think what you're doing is perfect. in my experience, basically, I try to understand if the person that I'm mentoring is someone who would like to be in a group or not. So usually what I do, or I stay with a one-on-one, or I start with a one-on-one where I give the resources, but especially I usually, one thing that I say is that, okay, during the first meetings, probably we will have more questions than replies, because I will add extra questions. And that's why, because I basically I want to push forward the how they are thinking about stuff, and also introduce new point of view. And I'm extremely lucky because since I've been meeting a lot of different people, I can also basically make sure that also those point of view are heard when I'm doing mentorship. And at the same time, I try also to give after some session, some practical application. So for example, it's like sort of gamification, such as, okay, we have discussed how you can grow in the data science career. Now let's go into, you have, I don't know, this event in your city in 3 weeks. What are the 3 challenges that we want? What are the 3 wins that we want to gain? And after that, what I usually do is also trying to invite the mentor to meet other leaders, because one thing that I want to highlight is that like they are only reading through my lenses. I want also to make them meet other leaders that are in my same sector or in their sector of interest, and see how they reply to the questions that I have. And then finally, if they agree, because sometimes they are really shy, sometimes they really want to be the solo adventurer, I put them, I would say maximum 3 people at a time in little group, and trying to think about, I don't know how to translate it in English, but basically it's the mise en situation. So it's like what you will do if this happens. And we try to start with a simple situation until the very, 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 like the hardest one. And again, at the end, we do one exercise that is basically, okay, tell me 3 things that you can say of the other 2 people that are with you that you will not expect when you entered this session, and then now you can learn from them. And it's interesting because they will say some stuff that the same people on the other side will say, wait, are you like, you see this on me? And the other person will reply, yes, I see that, because we have this, this, and this. And it's a very emotional moment. I think it's one of my best moments ever. And I really like it, because then they really become a group also when the mentorship is ended. So one of the questions they usually have is like, how can I enter AI? And what I say is that basically there is not a clear way, a clear path in AI neither, because before AI was mostly data science. Right now we have AI is more associated with the prompt engineer, and prompt engineering is something extremely new. It's very hard to understand what is a prompt engineer. And one thing that I usually say is that try to be concrete as possible. You have probably some companies in mind, or better, you have maybe you have the idea of what is your company like it's a bigger company, it's a startup, it's something between the two. let's try to find out who are the people working there that have the profile you think you want to. Sometimes they discover that they didn't even want to be that specific role at the end, because they saw that all the experience, all the projects that they do is not what they want to work for the rest, like for 5 years. And I try to let them understand that it's important to understand the market, but it's also important to understand what they like, because then they need to spend 8 hours every day working on that. And after that, the best thing to do is basically trying to ask to the people of the other company, what is your experience? What are you working on? Trying to establish new connection. More and more, and I'm very happy to see that, I see, however, people, especially women, that after some meetings with my mentees, they will say, okay, you know what? I know enough about you. And if you need any help, any referral, of course, they will not lie about what they know, but I can try to help you. And or I can try to shape your CV in a way that I know my company will like it. So it's this is what I usually suggest to my mentees to enter the field.
Yeah. So how did you apply to like all of your skills? Now you've got the UNESCO, you've got mentoring. How does your sort of day-to-day, the day job sort of fit into everything that you're doing?
So basically, it depends. So most of the time, what I do is like, as I said, I work as a AI director for the development of the AI. So I have that kind of we can say part of the day where I apply not only all the AI knowledge that I have, but also everything that is related on how to test hypotheses, how to create a pipeline, how to make sure that people that are not on the technical side can be onboarded, because I work more on the biotech medical field. So it's extremely important that the non-technical people can understand what the AI part is doing, and especially they can correct what it is needed to be corrected. There is this part, then there is more the consultant part that is, how can I say, is the part that basically will reply to my need, to my curiosity, because I work for different companies into different industries. So from home automation, video game industry. So totally different world, different mindset, different problems, but at the same time they share some challenges. And it's a way for me also to make sure that I can learn more and more, because I will have more challenges that I never faced. And at the same time, I can also try to understand how they think about processes. And it's also a way to understand the different industries, because I mean, one day maybe I would like to change industry again. So it's like, okay, let's see what is my next step. So this is basically the big part of my days. And then I have all the mentorship part. Usually it's more on during the weekend, so that I can have all the time to read. Because yeah, that's the other thing. I usually have a document that is shared with my mentees, and I write down some questions or some like reflections on. So it's interesting to sit down, relax. Everything is already done, so I can finally read, and I'm like, it's interesting. Yeah, okay, and think about that before starting the meeting. I have another part of more on the research side. So I've been, however, in academia for like 15 years. So I'm basically a reviewer of AI paper. So I can suggest modification. I can learn more about new project of research. I can also make sure that I don't lose that academic part of me in this way. And after all this, I stay with my cat, my family, and I'm also a singer, so I also prepare my shows, all the social media stuff associated. So that's it. And I usually I have at least one speaker opportunity every month. So right now I'm more focusing on the responsible and ethical AI, but I have also all the technical stuff, especially for the Google side. So DevFest and Women Techmakers, International Women Day.
You have a full plate, but it's all very important work.
Yeah.
And I appreciate all of it. And I appreciate you sharing with this. What kind of parting advice do you have for people and women in tech and those who are finding their way into tech or growing their careers?
First of all, be curious. Be curious because it's important. It's important for you. It's important because everything is changing so fast. So it's something like, if you want to be in tech, probably you will need to be a curious person. And the second one is something that I also said during the panel for a Women Techmaker event here in Montreal. You are not your work. This means that if there are things that you want to try and you cannot try at work, or you cannot try yet because you are searching for the next position, just do it during your own free time. Like, don't let your work be the source of knowledge or the source of growing up. You can always rely on yourself, and you need to do that. So don't wait for anybody else. The good part and the bad part, because you are alone, but the good part is that you can do and you can grow up, and you are responsible for that. And at the end of the day, you will basically observe you in the mirror and say, okay, I was able to do all of these. So make sure, no matter what is the level, no matter what you want to achieve, make sure, first of all, to congratulate yourself, and especially to be consistent only with yourself. Like, make sure that you have a plan, and no matter the work, people around you, their opinion, I don't know, whatever, just do it and go.
I think that's very well said and very appropriate. I mean, I think that's kind of comes back to something you and I both talked about, where you were saying, hey, back in the day, I would journal on my, on Word. And I now say I journal on ChatGPT. And I think that sense of writing it down, self-reflection,
Yep.
writing down your goals, getting clarity, getting more clarity, because at some point, I do feel a lot of things do feel like a menu with the ordering from the universe. And if you don't give the universe clear instructions about what it is that you want, it cannot help you.
Yep.
And sometimes the universe has other things in mind for us. And so we also have to yield, sort of take in the changes and the pivots and the things that, we sort of, but again, I still find I navigate those things through journaling. So whether it's me intentionally wanting to move forward, or it's the universe kind of being a wave that's washing over me because it's saying, I need you to go in a new direction, or there's things are changing and you just got to go with it. It still helps me process those ideas. And I remember I think it was 1 week that I was just super sick, and I was like in bed with the flu, and I just read. And for some reason I was reading all these books that the conclusion at the end of the week was like, oh, that's the basic secret to life. It's just a combination of will and desire. The will that you put out there, and the desire of what you like magnetize and attract to you.
Yeah, it's the manifestation, basically.
Yes, apparently. But I read it over several books, and I was like, oh, they all say the same thing. It's will and desire.
Yeah, that's the summarization, we can say.